Okay, folks, today I want to talk to you about the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, the oldest hotel in Bangkok. I wanted to take you there. It's a bit beyond my pay scale, and there's not really much there to show you author-wise anymore. Even in the author lounge, it's become like a glorified tea room. But in its time, this place was amazing. You had authors staying here such as Michener, Noel Coward, Graham Greene stayed there, Le Carre, Ian Fleming also. Actually, the guy who disappeared in one of my videos, Jim Thompson, the silk baron who disappeared in Malaysia, he was actually an OSS CIA agent here, tapped to perhaps design this hotel at one time. So I don't know how some of these authors afforded it, but maybe some of them, Le Carre and Fleming, were on the OSS CIA, or MI5, sorry, I should say, payroll. You got Paul Theroux stayed here. You've got Conrad stayed here, Barbara Cartland. And today we're going to talk about Somerset Maugham, other Oriental tales, other Asian tales. I'll put the title in the title. And most of them are about mismatched expatriates thrown together. So they could be high class, low class, or like a conscientious, if you can imagine such a thing, colonial agent versus like a debauched one. In the case of the story, I'm going to tell you it's about a person of foreign parentage born in the Malay states, who's not Malay and not British either, and makes a marriage with a British actress who ends up out there, and it becomes this sort of gothic tale due to the narrator who has malarial fever. And in fact, his boat, I believe they're Dayak boat rowers, are going to throw him off on the side because they expect him to die. They don't want any part of that. Can't blame them. He's an anthropologist, the narrator, but he does have a gun. He pulls out his gun and he's half in and out of fever, and it's like trying to stop them from jumping him on the side of the road. So they eventually come upon this planter's house. This I don't want to use the word half caste because it's not used in there, but it's probably the word that would have been used at the time. And he's not half caste actually because both of his parents were foreigner, but we could call him a Creole, is what you might call him in other parts of the world. Anyway, this British Malay-born Brit rubber planter has this poor planter's house. He's barely scraping by. No money, not enough to go back to England, even if he wanted to. And this is where this malarial narrator gets dumped with these guys, who sort of have to take him in begrudgingly. The planner's weird anyway, and there's something going on with the couple. So the wife only comes to visit the invalid when the planner's off in the fields, and is clearly visibly terrified of the planner, knowing that they had spoken. Now, I have had malaria in Mali when I was in Peace Corps, and I can tell you it is disorienting in the extreme, and that really is one of the things that puts the I'm going to say I somewhat overuse, isn't it? But we'll say gothic sort of tone over this story. For example, I remember waking up. I was shivering cold, which is, it's a fever, but you get these shivers. You know it's malaria because it comes and goes in like a regular pattern, like morning, afternoon. And so I knew I had malaria, so I came to the capital city. I eventually ended up getting medevac to the Ivory Coast, but that was because I had a positive TB exposure test, and I also had this horrible cough, probably more from the harmattan season and the burning fields maybe, and just staying too long out in the bush without any breaks, I think. But I was still in Bangkok. I was still in Bamako, in Mali, in the capital, and I was freezing because I was in an air-conditioned room. Not only that, I had the taste of brownies in my mouth. I'm like, I hallucinated brownies. I had this vision of this blonde angel and these brownies. The blonde angel ended up being Mary Lynn, I think her name was, this wonderful girl who had, uh, female volunteer who had hosted us. You do a trip during training called demystification, where they send you out with a real volunteer to see what the real field is like, and then you come back to training highly motivated to learn. And all the boy volunteers, for some reason, were sent out to this one host, Mary Lynn. I don't know why. The vast majority of our training group was girls, but they sent all the boys to this one woman. And 5 of us went out, 4 of us came back. My buddy Jeff had to eventually be tracked down with a vehicle out there. He got so sick. One of us disappeared for a while. I had a bug fly in my ear and just sting me repeatedly. Nothing like that ever happened again. But you're new and everything is just terrifying. Simply just the motorcycle rides and going past bullhorns and dust devils and things that are nothing to you later on. So anyway, Marilyn, in fact, had brought me brownies. She found out I was in this quarantine room in our Peace Corps Health Center, and that's why I had AC and everything. And it wasn't bad. Just the medicine really messes with your equilibrium, so you got to crawl everywhere, like crawling to the toilet and stuff. But that's malaria. So hopefully I gave you a little bit of an idea of what this narrator is going through. So he wakes up after this hellish boat ride. He knows he's in a Western house, but it's very poor. And the host won't take any money from him. But he does agree to accept eventually agrees to accept a gun, one of the guy's guns. So that's sort of hanging over the whole thing as well. So the woman comes the first morning when the planter's away and tells, some of the details of the house. She got these weird tics. She says she came out as an actress. Like I said, she was on the wrong side of whatever age you can't be an actress anymore. She was more pretty than talented, it sounds like, and so didn't have much of a career. Ends up on this Asian tour, which at first did okay, but by the time I got to the Malay states, they ran out of money. The impresario jetted in the night and just left these actresses stranded in Asia with no money. Now, the government offered to send them home steerage class, but she didn't want to do that. So she ends up marrying this planter, which at first seemed like an okay prospect. I mean, she was, going to have a home of her own. She never had, and kind of romantic foreign husband who was handsome and strong, and seemed like a good venture with this rubber plantation. Just didn't work out. So she was never able to go back. Now, he didn't have any interest in going back. He had been to school in England and did not think much of it, and thought even less of the British people in Malaysia or the Malay states. And he read like highfalutin books. So normally your planners would have just a couple like, adventure tales or something like that, maybe a Bible. But this guy has like, classics and philosophy. And so he's got a high vision of himself. I think this also adds to the Gothicness of this whole. So the wrong marriage, this weird house, the feeling of being trapped out there, a bit being exotic, sort of wet and dark, and this guy's the concept of this guy's high idea, and I think that's probably why he married a Brit, and he totally regrets. He knows his life would have been way better had he married a Malay. And she, of course, wants to go back to Britain desperately. She never can go. They can't even really go, traveling locally to see other foreigners. For a brief time, there were a couple foreigners posted across the river from them, but something happened with that, and they took off. And something happened with the couple as well. They keep alluding to some sort of incident that sort of soured them on each other. It sounds like at one point they were kind of in love. So all of this is hanging over this tale. I won't tell you what happens or how it all sorts out. But there you go. Somerset Maugham, who wrote a lot of stories about his travels, has really written a banger of a Gothic tale here. It eventually does switch to the point of view of the woman,